Hello, today we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Yesterday I didn't have, there wasn't enough time to cover everything that I wanted to say, and a lot of it's because of these 15-minute time constraints. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. If you have your Bibles, you can turn to John 15, and we're going to just start reading. I'm going to go through the whole chapter. So John 15, beginning with verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it, so that it may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, he bears much fruit, for apart from me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away as a branch dries up, and they gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. Just as the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be made full. This is my commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that one lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends, if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you slaves, for the slave does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you would go and bear fruit, and that your fruit would remain, so that whatever you ask of the Father in my name he may give to you. This I command you, that you love one another. If the world hates you, you know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, because of this the world hates you. Remember the word that I said to you: a slave is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will keep yours also. But all these things they will do to you for my name's sake, because they do not know the one who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have sin. But now they have no excuse for their sin. He who hates me hates my Father also. If I had not done among them the works which no one else did, they would not have sin. But now they have both seen and hated me and my Father as well. But they have done this to fulfill the word that is written in their law. They hated me without a cause. When the Helper comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, that is the Spirit of truth who proceeds from the Father, he will testify about me, and you will testify also because you have been with me from the beginning. So that is all of John chapter 15 right there. So you have that under your belt right now. Yeah. So, in this part here, what's going on is, this is one of the final teachings that Jesus is giving to his disciples, minus one. There were 12 disciples Jesus handpicked to, personally teach. From what I understand, this was actually a common practice of teachers or rabbis back then. They couldn't teach everyone, so that their teachings and things like that. So they would handpick, certain, they would handpick people, and this is what I understand what Jesus did. He basically picked 12 people to focus his teaching on, and oftentimes, those certain people that the rabbis or scholars back then would pick, they were those whatever number they were, they would go and teach, and they would go and teach. So, so this is kind of from what I understand of it. But, of course, here, we find that also one of the disciples, Judas Iscariot, he has already left back in verse 13, or sorry, chapter 13. So this is what's going on. I'm going to go through, and this might take me several videos to do, but I'm going to probably go through about verse by verse, and bring up some points in this whole chapter. So this is one of my favorite chapters of, in fact, Gospel of John is probably one of my favorite Gospels, and chapter 15 is one of my favorite chapters. So, beginning with verse 1, it says, I am the true vine, my Father is the vine dresser. Um, so, it's interesting. There's a link that you can pull from, I don't have the verse in front of me, but it's in Genesis. Most people, you could probably Google the story of the butler and the baker. In the story of the butler, while he's walking to Pharaoh, he has this empty cup, and there's supposed to be wine, but there's not there because he doesn't have wine for whatever reason. Excuse me. And then all of a sudden, a vine appears out of, in front of him, and a grape appears, and he takes the grape, squeezes it, and wine goes into the cup. This is the same. I believe that this is the same vine that that appears there, that Jesus is also talking about here. We can only produce fruit with Jesus, basically. So every branch in me that does not, verse 2, every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit, he prunes it so that it may bear more fruit. So yeah, if you're truly in Jesus, there's going to be some pruning you're going to have to go through, and some shaping by Jesus. And it's also interesting because he says this, a few chapters after he allowed Judas to leave, because Judas wasn't a part of Jesus, so he finally let him go. And so yeah, if you're not, if you never truly are in with the Spirit of God and stuff, eventually you will be cast out, whether it's in this life or could even be in the next life to come, because you were never there to begin with. So in verse 3 it says, you are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. So, we're all dirty to begin with. We're all born as sin, basically, and but because of Jesus' work, his removing our sin and dying on the cross for the forgiveness and the remission of sin, when we take that on faith, we're now clean, not because of what we do, but because of what God did. So we are now clean. Okay, now we're going to look at verse 4 some. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, so neither can you unless you abide in me. Like a fruit, if it's on the tree, or let's take a grape, let's take a grapevine. The grapes only can grow on the vine, right? If they're on the branch, they won't grow, right? So, so likewise, we're the fruit that's coming off of Jesus, right? And so we must continue to abide in Jesus to continue to produce good spiritual fruit. And I think this is kind of also emphasized in verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me, and I in him, he bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Yeah, that's right. Without Jesus, we cannot do anything. We cannot preach the gospel. We can try and preach the gospel, but it's gonna fail unless we're preaching it with Jesus. With Jesus in us. With the spiritual fruit that Jesus is producing in us. We can't do the great works of God, that even if we want to do those great works of God, without abiding in Jesus. Okay, verse 6. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up, and they gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. This is kind of like with pruning, right? I think I talked about this in another video, but if you have a dead branch on a tree, it's useless. You're better to cut it off. That way, more branches can grow, new ones can grow, and they grow better. So, he's using this as an analogy. And then usually, what do you do with those branches? You throw them away and maybe burn them. Use them as kindling, maybe. And so if you're not truly abiding with God, and you're trying to, and it could be that you're trying to convince, everyone, including God, that you are, God knows your heart. And eventually, if you're still living that way upon judgment time, you will be cast off and thrown into the fire, because he knows your heart. Okay, verse 7. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. And this would be, you should know, this, you should, the more you walk with the Holy Spirit, the more you know God's will. So what you're asking would be God's things of God's will, right? Okay, verse 8, my Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. So yeah, we must continue to produce good spiritual fruit through Jesus, and this is what glorifies God. Actually, if we're trying to produce our own fruit, as I believe I've said in another video, because we are basically born as sin, we can only produce sin. We can only produce evil. But when the goodness of Jesus comes in us, we start producing good things. And this glorifies God. Okay, verse 9. Just as the Father has loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love. So Jesus, loved him and us. Or, I'm sorry, the Father loved Jesus and also loved us. So we must abide in Jesus' love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. So his ultimate commandment, which is to love, this is pretty much, I would say, the highlighted several times as, love. Love God, love the Father, and love our neighbor. I'm going to go ahead and stop here. We still have, it looks like 17 verses. It might take about 2 days to go through. But yeah, anyway, take care, and Lord willing, we'll pick up with verse 11 tomorrow.